Right, today's sutta has a very strange name. It's called Nu Sīha Sutta. And I put the prefix Māra in front so we can remember what it is about. It is in a series of suttas about Māra. It's a very short sutta, actually, less than a 1 A4 page. This one of those occasions when the title of the sutta actually comes from Māra himself. He said these words, beginning with Nu Sīha. It's only part of a sentence. Kinu, King Nu, what now? It's like a question. And then lion, okay, so it's not complete. You have to look at the sentence, look at the verse spoken by Māra, then you get the full sentence. So the sutta collectors, they chose these words to give it a title. Originally, there was no title. People just recite. The reciters recite the sutta just like that. Then later on, they summarize. To remember, they summarize the headers. They put the headers together at the end of each chapter, and from there they know it's like a checklist. What are the suttas? The Māra discourse on what now? Lion. S 4.12. Right. So this S4, you find a lot of Māra suttas. This is the first volume of the Samyutta Nikaya. So here, there are a number of themes you can choose for this sutta. Actually, one of the themes is: are there others who can teach like the Buddha? Right? Because the Buddha is our first teacher, right? The first historical teacher. So in this story, you find Māra appearing, trying to distract the Buddha, right? Now, in this new series, the 60-volume SD60 series, I've translated quite a great number of Māra suttas. Many of them tend to be very short, showing how Māra appears to distract the monks and the nuns when they are meditating with all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of ideas. For example, Māra will appear to the nuns and say, are you not afraid of meditating alone? You know, it's not safe for you. You're a woman, things like that. And then sometimes, if the nun is very wise or very clever, Māra appears and asks questions like, "Who created this body? Do you know where this body comes from?" Things like that. So it's basically causing us to think, causing us to connect with one of the senses. Remember, the 5 senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So one way of looking at it, these are Māra, the 5 sense stops. Now, the Buddha is not saying that the 5 sense stops are evil. They are there. We have the senses, and this is how we connect with the world, and it's also how we learn. But the problem with doors is that it's open. Anyone can come in, good people, bad people, robbers, and so on. So we have to guard the sense door. So when you're meditating, you are guarding the sense door. And there are many suttas that say that when you are deeply focused, the Māra cannot trouble you. Māra cannot touch you, so to speak. So Māra's tools are the 5 senses, making us see this, hear that, and so on. Yet, if we are mindful, let's say you see and you are very mindful, you see and there is this object and there's just seeing, and again there you train yourself to stay focused. So the idea is to keep the mind focused. When the mind is focused, then you are turning away from Māra, so to speak, yeah? So Māra is a very interesting term, kind of concept, if you like, the mythology, if you like, call it what you like. Now, if you think too much about it, you got to stop somewhere, otherwise you won't learn. Because sometimes we wonder, is it real? Is Māra real? Is or is it just a story, It's a learning tool, a teaching tool, right? You notice there are many things in our lives, they're not real. We just follow this idea. For example, we buy a fan, we buy some gadget, thinking that, oh, this will last forever for us, but that forever is just a few months, few years, maybe, or even a few days. So we often live with this kind of myths, and that's the way things are. The idea here, as a teaching tool, the Buddha is reminding us, stay on course, don't give up, be calm, keep to your posture, keep to your posture, the Buddha says. Here, posture is gochara. Gochara means the way the cows travel. It's always the same path. They go to the place where there's good grass, and then they come home by the same way. And that's the safe place. If they go outside of this path, they might get stuck in some mud or fall off a cliff or some very dangerous place. So they keep to the path. So keeping to the path, of course, will be keeping to the precepts, meaning you guard your body and speech. Then there is sense restraint. Sense restraint means seeing less, hearing less, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, less. If not necessary, no need to do it. That's the meaning here. At the same time, it also means when you do use your senses, or you can only use one at a time, make sure what you're using it for. You have to be focused. Like you look through a telescope in a great distance, you have to focus it, you have to keep it stable. Then you can see clearly, hear clearly, taste clearly, smell clearly, feel clearly, think clearly. That's the idea. Because these five senses, when they connect with consciousness, they connect with sense object, they are also the source of knowledge, of wisdom. They also help us understand the Buddha's teaching, and then we become awakened through our practice. So Māra tries to disrupt this learning tool, try to pollute this learning tool, try to take over this learning tool, so that we think about things we don't like, things that trouble us. That's Māra. Okay. Now, also, when we read stories of Māra, you find the Māra's always there trying to distract the Buddha. So he's called the distractor in that sense. Whenever you want to do something good, especially, you find it can be difficult. So many challenges. That's Māra working behind the scene. Okay? So we don't give up. The idea is not to give up. So the idea of Māra is not to frighten us. The idea of Māra is not to give up. If you do not know the Dharma, if you simply listen to what other people say and not what the suttas are telling us, then there'll be a lot of fear. When we listen to people gossip, there'll be a lot of fear. Why? Because what people say are not always the same. You find different people say different things, and some of them, whatever they tell you, they're so sure they are right, and you find two different people telling exactly the opposite thing, and they say they're both right. So you get confused and fear in you. So you have to think for yourself through your experience, through causes and effect, and you see what's going on. That way, Māra cannot trouble you. Now things get more serious, when you talk about Māra. The worst can happen in our lives. For example, whenever we try to do good, you find there's someone, something trying to stop us. And sometimes we don't even know this. Sometimes we think that this person is very kind, very helpful to us, but then later, as you grow older and wiser, you look back and say, wow, I was taught the wrong thing, I was distracted, and so on. And you find this happens to every one of us. At some point in our life, someone or something will try to distract us, will try to cause us a lot of suffering, simply because we want to do good. So that means you are trying to do good. That's the important thing. So this is where you tell yourself, okay, how can I do this in a proper way, successful way, not to be discouraged. And you can only do this by learning, by looking at the situation, and then looking at yourself. What do I do now? The Buddha teaches in the sutta says, if you fail in all these things, you try very hard to ask yourself, what do I do now? What do I do next in this present moment? Just keep on doing it. As you know, all my life, last over 20 years at least, 30 years, I wanted to do sutta studies. And it's something most Buddhists in Malaysia and Singapore are not really interested. One reason is because it's not easy. You look at the suttas, there's so much repetition and you don't know what they're talking about. And when you do know what they're talking about, you find they seem to be talking the same things. But there are a lot of deeper things in the suttas which we should not discount. Because if you look at the sutta in a broad way, you find you learn so much about yourself. That's what starting suttas is about. We know ourselves better as we look at the sutta. As you look at the sutta, you read it and you say, how do I relate to this sutta? What is the sutta teaching? So these few years, this 20 years of sutta work, what I found is that as I translate the suttas, I'm writing more about my experiences over the last 50 years or so of being a Buddhist. And what I've learned from my Pali teachers in Thailand and from meditation and other various systematic learning, even in the universities, all this help me put together all these wonderful ideas. For example, in the latest volume, SD62.21, I think, it tells us the sutta is again a very short one. It's just about the Buddha teaching something to someone, but then you find there's so many things to talk about. So what is the Dharma? Then I explain all the meanings. I finally managed to put together all the different 20, 30 senses of the Dharma and used in different ways. Then how do we practice this? And then how the senses relate to the aggregates, the six senses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, relate to the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness. And when they work together, we know things through perception. But then, do we know the right thing? How do we know it's the right thing? So this is what this latest SD62 Sutta talks about, right? So you find all these are very interesting. That is what keeps me going. Then when I read a sutta passage, I say, wow, this is interesting. This is connected with another sutta and so on. So there you are. This is what we have in connection with this kind of teaching. You begin to understand the nature of myth, nature of stories, and how you guide your lives by this kind of stories, especially of Māra. Okay. Now let's look at the sutta itself. Go down to the sutta on page 183 in my book. Today, just look at this sutta. It's just It's less than a page actually. And it is one page because there are lots of footnotes in it. Māra Nu Sīha Sutta, the Māra discourse on what now lion S 4.12 Sangyutta, chapter 4, Sutta 12. At one time, the Blessed One was staying in Anathapindika's park in Jeta's Grove outside Savatthi. Now, at that time, the Blessed One was teaching the Dharma surrounded by a large assembly. So this is just a very simple situation the Buddha is teaching. Then it occurred to Māra, the evil one. What does it mean it occurred to Māra, the evil one? He's there watching the Buddha. You remember, he was there kind of like the Buddha's shadow all the way. The question now is, starting from when did Māra start following the Buddha? He was not there when the Buddha was born. He was a little baby, because babies don't think, so you're, in a sense, you're free from Māra. Babies make a lot of noise, but they don't think. So you can say, well, if you read the stories of the Buddha, Māra first appeared to the Buddha when he was going to leave home, when he was going to renounce the world. He's going to change his life. Māra tried to stop him and said, don't leave the palace. Don't give up worldly life. You'll be a king in 1 week's time. I mean, if you are a powerful, rich layman, you can do so much good work. You can do works of merit, Like nowadays, you have these modern monks telling people, dedicate merits, and you'll be rich. What you give, you get back, and so on. It's like business talk nowadays. That's Māra talking, by the way. So, of course, the great thing about the Bodhisattvas, Buddha to be Siddhartha, he was already determined. He saw the 3 signs. He knew they were not good. An old man, sick man, dead man. Why are we troubled by all this? We wanted to find out the answer, which is the 4th sight. So, fortunate for us, Māra could not stop him. He went forth. So notice that again, when you want to do something great, there'll be another force. Someone, something will try to prevent you from doing it. So don't give up, right? And from then, Māra is always there, always in the background, trying to distract the Buddha. So it's the great distractor. Here he is watching the Buddha, teaching the Dharma, and there's this big crowd. So you can imagine Māra thinking, wow, look at the Buddha. He's teaching on this big crowd. And if these people are listening, they will move away. They'll be free from my influence, Māra thinks. So he tries to distract everyone. So, look at 3. What happens now? Then Māra, the evil one, approached the Blessed One and addressed him in verse. Okay, now that's the thing about suttas. The lines are very terse, they're very short. They don't tell us much. It's up to the teacher to tell you what he knows, what he has learned. It is like musical notes, you get this great performer to interpret the music. So Māra, the evil one, approached the Blessed One. How did he appear? I mean, if he looks really terrible, frightening, like, the pictures you see during, just before the awakening, I don't think people will stay there. Everyone will be running in helter-skelter in all directions. But here, the big crowd remain. The big crowd is there, but so it is someone in the crowd. Maybe, in my idea, he's probably a very powerful, very important looking man, so that people will listen to him, and it's a loud voice that he stands up and dares to challenge the Buddha in front of everyone else during a Dharma talk. So, but here, this is what Māra thinks. We are given this, what is called the audience that knows the mind of the actors in the sutta, the omniscient, what they call narrator, if you like, or reader in this case. So Māra thinks this recluse Gautama is teaching the Dharma surrounded by a large assembly. Let me approach recluse Gautama in order to confound them. Notice he didn't say confuse the Buddha, no? Because he knows by now he's the Buddha, he can't confuse the Buddha anymore. So he wants to distract the audience by approaching the monk. You find this happens in quite a lot of talks, and sometimes people are not really interested in the Dharma, so they ask all kinds of silly questions, or they do things which are not very helpful. So let me approach the Buddha to confuse, mislead the audience. So here he asks a challenging question. One verse only. Then Māra, the evil one, approached the Blessed One and addressed him in verse. Right. So here again, Māra often approaches the Buddha addressing in verse, showing that he's a very important character. Well, when there is the Buddha, there is Māra. It's kind of like anti-Buddha, if you like, the opposites. But Māra, we don't regard Māra like the way God religions regard, say, it's the devil. We see Māra as our own mind, as something we need to do to perfect, to train ourselves so that we push away Māra and he's not able to distract us. So now Māra, in front of the crowd, asked the Buddha, Nu Sīha Nadasi. Nu Sīha Nadasi. Why now do you roar like a lion? Right? Siho, lion, or Siha, lion. And nada is to roar like a lion, nadasi. Yeah? You, second person, singular. Nu Sīha. Okay, wa here is a stress particle. Nadasi. Parisayang visarado. Visarada means confident. Parisa is company. Confident in an assembly. So here the Buddha, this Māra is subtly sarcastic. He's telling the Buddha, how come you're so confident before this big crowd? Patimalohi te ati. The verb is at the end. Ati, there is, or it is. Then patimalo. Pati means anti, against patimalo, rival. Te is you. He is again is a stress particle. Or you have a rival. Patimalo hite ati. Vijita vinu manyasi. So how can you consider yourself the victor? How can you consider yourself the victor? So imagine you have this big gathering, and here this, it's like a politician, he's attacking the Buddha, hinting, says, how do you think you are a good speaker? How do you think you can sit here in front of this crowd and teach them? And people will be curious, wow, it's like a political debate, right? People are easily distracted. Then the Buddha replies, very short reply. Nadanti we Mahavira. Way is a kind of stress word showing urgency. Nadanti we Mahavira. Mahavira, great hero. Plural, Mahavira. Okay. The great heroes indeed roar, the lion roar. So here the Buddha is not talking about himself alone. He says, all the Buddhas do this. All the Buddhas roar like a lion. Teach the Dharma, they roar. What does it mean? What is a lion roar? When Dharma is spoken, even the Devas are terrified because it's about impermanence. Imagine that the Devas enjoying their beautiful life and they're told they're impermanent, so they're very worried. So in a sense, you find when the rich hear the teaching of the Dharma, they're also worried because everything is impermanent and they're afraid they might lose their wealth. So that helps to make them be more jealous of the temples and so on. And then they hear nice things from the monks and they're happy. So here, the great heroes, the Buddha, makes this lion roar to teach the Dharma. Why is the Dharma called lion roar? Because when the Dharma is properly spoken, the basic teachings are taught, no one can really disprove it. You can ask questions here and there because of doubt, but no one can say there is no suffering. No one can say pain is good, unless they are a bit mentally troubled or they have some nasty plans in their heads, right? So you can't prove these basic teachings of the Dharma wrong in any way. You can say, oh, I don't like to hear about suffering, so negative. That only proves the point that suffering is not something people like. That is why then the Buddha was courageous enough to speak out, say, this is suffering. You don't like it. That's the point, because it is suffering. So how did this happen? Then the Buddha goes on. Tathagata balapata. Tathagata balapata. The Tathagatas, the Buddha does come, endowed with the powers. So the Buddha has got various kinds of powers of knowing people's mind, their character, teaching the Dharma, and so on. The Buddha has got all this through his great awakening. Tinna loke visattikam ti. Tinna loke visattikam. Because you pronounce without the T, you say visattikam. But here the T is like close quote. So the reciters in ancient times, I mean, they don't have books. So they will say, Tinna loke visattikam ti. Okay, the sentence is ended, the verse is ended. Have crossover attachment to the world. Tinna is crossover. So the Buddhas have no fear because they crossover. And so they are arahats. They know what they're talking about. So they do not fear anyone or anything, like even Māra. So the Buddha knows Māra, and the Buddha tells Māra off. So here is the lesson. Don't be afraid of Māra. Stand firm, stand your ground, because he cannot harm you. Because don't worry, you don't have the desire like a Buddha, you want to awaken the world, whatever, right? We're struggling with our own troubles and weaknesses. We want to calm the mind. And the good thing is many people are like us. So in that sense, Māra is not like to appear to us the way he appears to the Buddha, but he will still appear to us in a very tricky way, in which we least expect, in a very tricky way. That's another thing you should be mindful of, right? So the Buddha here says, basically saying, I know you, Māra. Okay. Then Māra, the evil one, thinking, the blessed one knows me, the well-gone one knows me. Sad and disheartened, disappeared right there. So you notice Māra is quite emotional himself. He got very disappointed because the Buddha knows him. So you notice all these nasty people who work against us, spread gossips against us, they don't want to know. They're like Māra, hiding behind in the darkness. They don't want to know. Why? Because if people know they talk bad about you, they'll be always told saying, why are you talking bad? And you find your good karma is there, your good karma will help you. So they're afraid of that. So they're always in the dark, and Māra is like that. So the Buddha says, I know you, and Māra just said, wow, okay, he knows me, and he disappears. So this is a very interesting way of, the Buddha has a very interesting way of telling us, when you know your enemy, you expose that enemy. So don't be afraid. When Māra appears, says, I know you, Māra, you won't distract me, I'm letting you go. May you be well and happy. You can say that also. Because Māra, like the Buddha, is a status, if you like. They will pass away also because they exist. And then a new one will arise. You have on one side this fully awakened Buddha, on the far end, the dark side, this totally dark figure of Māra. In a sense, we are our own Māra, in a sense, because all the nasty thoughts come from within us. So we got to watch out that when that Māra arises, we got to let it go. So the keyword here is let go of all the senses. To the extent you are safe. You know Māra. I say, I know this is Māra. I'm going to let it go. Let it go. Just remember that word in this teaching. Okay, I'm going to end here for a while. We'll take a short break, about 5 minutes, so we'll come back. Now, as you know, our Sutta Discovery Project is an ongoing Sutta translation and study. And now it is, from what I gather, when you search on the internet, you find it's being used worldwide, in different places, even in the universities where the monks study, even in especially the Buddhist, what they call this, chat groups and so on. So it's good to know they are very interested in suttas. Now, if there are suttas that you're curious about, there's certain topics, special topics you have in mind, and you want to know whether any suttas talk about it, you can write to us. We can introduce you of the suttas. Or sometimes you find there are difficult topics like fire aggregates and so on, right? So just write in, inquire. We have a lot of this. It's a good place to begin where you're curious, where you want to know more. You must know, even at my age now, after about 50 years of studying suttas, I'm still curious. What has the Buddha got to say? Now that I know much more about the sutta than before, much more about the Dharma than before, I'm even more curious because things are so clear when they're put together. You have this better idea what's going on, right? So that's what the Dharma does for us. As we grow old, you can say older if you like, you find knowing the Dharma enriches your life in this way. You find, wow, this is really wonderful, because this mature age we are helps with the calmness of our mind and our past good karma. It's easier to understand the suttas. And also, there is this great joy. That's the important thing. The joy is there, the peace is there. It's not just about knowing, it's about being joyful or at peace with yourself. So remember, when you study suttas, the idea is to feel it, be happy with it. You find a lot of people have different opinions, right? And that's natural because we're all limited in our knowledge, and we start from where we are. So it's okay if people have different ideas, but important thing is we are willing to discuss, willing to learn. Okay, anyone like to start with a question? If any question?
Nama Budaya, Brother Piya.
Yes, Sadhu. True.
Okay. So you were saying at one point that Māra can represent many things, right? It can also represent our mind, right? Which is quite defiled.
Yes.
But I was just thinking, in the case of a Buddha, who is an Arahant, fully enlightened,
Yeah.
more likely Māra for him is an external entity
Yes, that's
rather
right.
than his mind, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
pure.
Yeah.
So that being the case, I'm just very curious. We know that the Buddha has many qualities, one of which is that he is a teacher of gods and men. So I'm just very surprised that with so many encounters with Māra, why is he not able to somehow convert Māra? You know, since he's a teacher of gods and men.
That's true. Yeah. Teachers. I mean, we have teachers in our own schools. I mean, imagine we ask ourselves, why don't these teachers teach everyone so that they all pass their exams? Now, you know, if that happens, there'll be a lot of problems, you know, economic problems and job problems and so on, isn't it? So we're all limited in our different ways. Now, don't talk about Māra, talk about Devadatta. You know, see, the Buddha couldn't even convert Devadatta, but he started Devadatta on a good path. You know, after when Devadatta passed away, he realized he was wrong. You know, the Buddha is a Dharma appearing in our world, and once anything appears in the world, you find there are limitations. And Māra is always there, and the Buddha, because he's dealing with Māra, he's reminding us that we should be dealing with Māra. If things were so easy, the Buddha goes zapped and Māra is gone, it'd be like one of those fiction stories, you know, you see, and you just love the violence. Oh, the hero kills the villain, you know. In reality, it doesn't happen like that. Māra is always there. In fact, Māra outlives the Buddha, right? You know, I love this story about the monk Upagupta. You know, he's a Mahayana. There's a Mahayana story, but the Burmese incorporated it into their collection. It's a beautiful story. So Māra has seen the Buddha. So the story goes that this Burmese monk, Upagupta, became Burmese in the story. He was so determined. So, how does the Buddha look like? Really look like, you know? Then he realized Māra has seen the Buddha. Māra knows exactly how the Buddha looks like, and Māra has got power, so he can actually show how the Buddha looks like. Right? So this Upagupta, he has got powers, you know. I don't know whether it's an arahat or not. Anyway, probably he is an arahat in the story. And he managed to use some magic rope, R-O-B-E, not R-O-P-E, which he turned into a rope. He invited Māra over with praises. He says, oh, you know, I'm going to make offerings to you. And Māra is very happy. He said, wow, okay, here's one monk who's my follower. Māra appears. And the Upagupta managed to trap and capture Māra with this magical rope. So Māra got tied up. And Māra said, release me. Why do you hold me, you know? He said, well, I have a request to make. So Māra said, okay, I'll do anything, just release me. So Māra said, well, you know the Buddha, right? So I want you to show to me how the Buddha looks like, because you have seen him and you have lived long enough. Imagine 2,600 years, nearly 3,000 years. So Māra was reluctant. Māra said, no, please don't ask me to do this, because it's very dangerous. You know, if you worship me, if you bow down before me and I'm not worthy of your worship, my head was split into 7 pieces. So you have all these very interesting Indian literary motifs and stories, parts of the stories. So the story continues. The monk says, don't worry, I just want to see the Buddha. So Māra said, okay. Of course, in the story, Upagupta assumes that Māra will keep his promise, and Māra did. That's the great thing. That's the human side of Māra also. So he frees Māra, but Māra knows if he doesn't keep the promise, this monk might chase him and look up for him. So he exits, he goes into the forest, and there was this bright light in the forest. And then he comes out like this huge theater, what do you call that, stage. And there is this group of beautiful looking beings with the Buddha, led by the Buddha. So you have the Buddha in the center and all these great arahats behind him, like a triangle, So you can see, looking in the front, you can see this amazing image. The Buddha is emerging from the forest for this Upagupta to see. Upagupta, of course, was so happy. Imagine if you can truly see the Buddha today, you and I. We'll be so happy, we'll be so inspired. So what did he do? I mean, the Upagupta was so happy. He bowed down before Māra. And Māra said, stop, you're not supposed to do that. But he bowed down 3 times. And this part is very funny. You can really dramatize this story, Nothing happened to Māra. His head did not split, you see. All right? So Māra said, that's strange. How come you bowed to me and nothing happened to me? Then comes a very wonderful lesson here. Upagupta tells Māra, Māra, I'm not bowing to you. I'm bowing to the Buddha. You see? So this is where, when you bow down before all those strange images of Buddha, remember, in your mind, you're bowing down to this wonderful teacher, give us this teaching. You're not bowing down to rocks and stones and metal, So that basically is the beautiful story. There are lots of other things. There's a whole classic literature on this. So here is where Māra plays an important role in teaching us. He's like a passive teacher, if you like. Don't do these bad things. You're going to end up like him. He's helpless. He is helpless. He just has to do evil. There's no other way. He knows what to do until his time is up. So whereas the Buddha is on the other side, happily doing good. So in a sense, Māra is like a symbol. You don't convert symbols. You need them to teach Dharma. So in a sense, Māra is like, ironically, it's like the Buddha's assistant in a way, who plays the devil's advocate, as they say, but here's the devil himself, so to speak. All right. So remember, Dharma is a lesson. Dharma is a lesson. Yeah. All right. I hope that helps. Huh?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm just curious, how many Māras have there been? We know there have been many Buddhas, but how many Māras have there
I
been?
suppose, from what I understand, in our universe, one Buddha, one Māra. There may be there are other parallel, no, I wouldn't say parallel. There are other multiverses. So I suppose in each multiverse there is a Buddha, there is a Māra. So that's why the Mahayana talks about so many Buddhas. But these are really, really distant galaxies and universe, so we should not bother about that. Our universe is big enough, right? Traditionally, of course, there are 5 Māras. So you have the 5 aggregates, Māra, for example, your senses are Māra, this to remind us not to get distracted. The Pancha Māra. Okay, so yeah. Next question, please.
Yes, any question, please? Now is the time to ask, even it's not related to this class.
Yeah, related to the Dhamma.
Yeah. Any general question also?
Well, if there's no question, let me just dedicate some merits to a deceased relative of ours. But first, let me tell another story. Well, this is from the sutta itself, the story of the Lady Visakha. This Lady Visakha is the leading lay woman disciple of the Buddha. She's not only beautiful, she's also rich and very intelligent. And one morning around midday, she She came all drenched, hair and clothes all wet to the Buddha, and she was crying. The Buddha asked her, why is she crying? She says, oh, my dear beloved granddaughter has passed away. So she was very sad. Then the Buddha looked at her and asked her, says, how many relatives, how many children, relatives, granddaughters do you have? He says, oh, I have many. She's the kind of lady who loves this big family. Then the Buddha asked, you can say a pointed question. The Buddha asked her, Visakha, how would you like if you have the whole of Savatthi, this whole city, as your relatives? They're all related to you somehow, nephews and nieces and cousins and so on. Well, suddenly her face lit up. I said, wow, that'd be wonderful, you know, I have so many relatives. I said, yes, Visakha. But Visakha, just think, if you're such a big family, you know, just imagine this city of Savatthi, this town, wherever you are, how many people die in a day? Right? How many people die in Singapore, in Malaysia, in India, in Australia, or whatever, but just town that you're living in, you find there's always death every day, sometimes more than one. So the Buddha said, Visakha, imagine if you have all these relatives in this town, there be not a single day you won't be attending a funeral. Every day someone will be passing away. That'd be terrible, isn't it? So the lesson here, the Buddha is saying, death is the nature of things. Accept it as it is. Live with, be happy with the living, be kind to each other, and then you have good memories of all these people. So I was thinking of Ratna's, my wife Ratna's family is so huge, is it? So huge that, you know, there's always a death almost every year. Only just a couple of weeks ago, her sister passed away, which we dedicated the marriage only the previous lesson. And here tonight we dedicate marriage to another cousin. This time to a cousin sister on the father's side. Ratna's third cousin sister on the father's side. So permit me to recall all these wonderful things today we have done, our meditation, studying the suttas, keeping the precepts, and so on. We dedicate all this merit. So you too, please join me, right, to dedicate this merit to remember this relative, Ratna's cousin sister, Lim Po Ai, who passed away on 1st of May this year. And so wherever she is, may she be well and happy. People in our families are always good memories. We begin with good memories. Things happen later. We all grow old. We all get sick, right? So we dedicate these merits for their well-being. That we will meet again with in happier circumstances, and perhaps together study the Dharma, be happy. So build this happy, positive mind. Remember the good things this disease has done, and send your kind thoughts to them, because we will meet again. And hopefully when we meet again, we'll be good friends, good relatives. May Madam Lim Po Ai be well and happy. Okay, so we still have about 5 minutes more. So any questions you might still ask. So no more questions, huh? So we'll close 5 minutes early then. So you can just turn on your videos so that we can see each other as we close the study. This is for each of us. So just recall to mind this happy moment we've spent with each other from different parts of the world. We have come with one heart, one mind, because of the Buddha, to practice the Dharma, We have recited the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. We practice meditation, listen to the teachings. So maybe also aspire to reflect on impermanence and attain stream winning even in this life itself. That is the Sangha. All these good things we have done today will remain with us for the rest of our life and many lives to come until we awaken ourselves. So this is the time to remember this goodness you have done right now. Send your kind thoughts to yourself that you may be healthy and wise and live long to practice the Dharma and share it with others. And send your kind thoughts to loved ones, relatives, and friends. Even to those who are a bit difficult, may they be well and happy. And be kind and friendly to you. So spend this quiet moment, a couple of minutes, to send those kind thoughts to them. And now we close by giving 3 bows to the Buddha, to the Dharma, to the Sangha. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.